Morning, everybody, and welcome. We're going to be getting started in about 30 seconds. Okay. Well, good morning, and thanks to everyone for joining us for this presentation, Employee to Entrepreneur. Can I get a quick hand raise from attendees letting me know that we have good audio? Thank you very much. Okay, today's webinar will be presented by Erika Davis of FranNet, and we'll also be joined later in the broadcast by Gary Sipes, franchise developer from 5 Star Painting, and Michael Nungesser, 5 Star Painting franchisee. Your host for today's webinar is the Mohawk Valley Small Business Development Center. The Mohawk Valley SBDC is part of the New York Small Business Development Center's network of 22 campus-based centers and outreach offices across New York State. Our centers provide free business advising and research, as well as free or low-cost training to startups, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. I'm your moderator, Zach Steffen, Business Advisor at the Mohawk Valley SBDC. And I'm also joined today by Associate Business Advisor CJ Hannerhat, who will be assisting with the webinar. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box using the button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll have a Q&A session following the presentation. We will be sharing a recording of the presentation with all attendees later this week. And with that, I'll turn things over to Erika.
Great, Zach. Thank you. I just wanted to say hi to everybody today, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Zach and CJ, for helping out with the webinar today. And really appreciate being here with everybody. And hope to give you an hour of some great information. I just want to introduce myself very quickly here. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and shut off my camera here. Let's see. There we go. So again, my name is Erika Davis. I am a FranNet franchise specialist, and I'll explain that a little bit more here in a minute. But I am a marketing and operations professional. I have been an entrepreneur for most of my career. I owned a bookstore coffee house in my hometown for about 10 years, had about 18 to 20 employees at any given time. It was actually a fairly big operation, and taught me a whole bunch about business ownership. So I also, about 4 years ago, received my certification as a professional coach. And like I said, I am a franchise specialist with FranNet. I do all of these things. I also do some consulting work with a different SBDC office up in Watertown right now, and doing some leadership coaching as well. But I do all of this because I do have a huge passion for small business startup and entrepreneurship, and also helping people figure out if business ownership is the right thing and the right choice for them. So just a little bit about FranNet, if I can get my screen going. We are a 30-year-old international franchise consulting firm. So we have the history and experience of matching entrepreneurs to the right franchise. That's really our biggest role. There are around 100 of us around the country. We are locally based, which is fairly different as far as how other franchise consulting firms work. So we are here and local, and here to help you with local resources too. And we are very proud and very grateful for our partnerships with the SBDC offices, including the Mohawk Valley SBDC office right here, and the SCORE offices around the country. So we work closely with those industry experts and partners to ensure that our clients have the tools that they need to succeed. So, like I said, our main role is to match prospects with specific franchisors. We do have specific franchisors that we represent. We educate our clients on opportunities in business ownership. We offer our clients choices so they can make informed decisions. We're going to talk about that today and how important that is in thinking about business ownership. And our services, just like at the SBDC, are always 100% free to you or to our clients. And I always like to point out, we do not sell franchises. So we don't get involved in the negotiation of a sale between an individual client and a potential franchise. That is not our role in this. Our role is to help our clients navigate through the due diligence process, and also to help match them with the right business concepts. So with that, just a quick rundown of our agenda. We're going to talk about the concept of employee to entrepreneur today. For those of you who are thinking about business ownership for the first time, we're going to talk about that business ownership and franchise exploration. In other words, sort of the different kinds of ways you can get into business for yourself. We're going to talk about some franchise myths and facts, and maybe I'll wake you guys up after having talked to you for about 20 minutes here with a little quiz. And then my favorite part, we're going to have that Q&A, as Zach was saying, with franchise reps. So a franchisor from 5 Star Painting, Gary, and Michael, a franchisee, who will really shed some light on what it's like to work in the franchising industry, what it's like to work as a local business owner, as a franchisee with a specific franchise. So let's get going. I first want to talk about, sort of the different kinds of career paths that you can take, right? And the way I like to start this out is that, looking at the career path of yesteryear, right? I mean, our fathers, our grandfathers, and even sometimes our grandparents, I should say at this point, our grandmothers too, started off on traditional education route, then got a job right out of college and might have stayed with the company, right? We know IBMs of the world well here up in this area, right? And stayed with that company for 30, 40, maybe even 50 years, right? And that was their trajectory. And they ended up with a pension. And those things are just not, do not exist like they did before, right? But that trajectory allowed them to get to that retirement, the personal, the professional, and the financial goals achieved, and get to that, I'm 65 now, I can, move to sunny Florida. And so the reality is that here's what the career paths of today look like, right? There are lots of detours that happen. And, there are lots of reasons why detours happen. It can be because of a layoff, or maybe several layoffs, or maybe a forced relocation that made you decide, no, I'm going to go find another position. I don't want to move my family. It could be changing industries, right? I'd be really interested here if people wouldn't mind or are willing to share in the chat kind of maybe, what it's been like for you on your career path, maybe what has caused some detours for you. And so I will keep an eye on the chat, and Zach, if you can help me with any of that too, that would be great. If I get going and forget to check, but I would love to hear from attendees today about, what your career path has been like as far as the detours and, some of those bigger moments in your career where those decisions had to be made. So get into my screen here. So the question then is working for someone else really that safe anymore, right? We don't have those pensions. We don't have that security of being with the same corporation for decades, right? So in the short term, yes, a lot of times a job out of college or, the trajectory is safe, but, can you be sure the job is safe for a long period of time? And, along with that, can your performance really determine your security these days, right? And will you meet your long-term financial goals of security and retirement by staying in the corporate world, right? And of course, sometimes the answer to that is going to be yes. I mean, a lot of times people are still having very successful, long careers in corporate, but it's not necessarily as secure as we'd like it to be or what our original perceptions of that trajectory has been. So another possible solution, obviously, is business ownership, right? And it can be a way in which to get to those personal, professional, and financial goals that are achievable as a different route, right? A different sort of a detour, but a detour that can still get you to those personal and financial goals later in life and provide some more further security. So yes, of course, owning your own business can be scary, but the fact of the matter is that you can't be downsized, right? You can't be transferred or fired. In other words, you have more control over your destiny and how you want things to look like in your life, your lifestyle choices, right? You can grow that business at the pace that you want. And the fact of the matter is that the longer that you own your business, the safer, the more secure it becomes. So the risk perception for business ownership, right, has always been, it's definitely riskier than taking that job. But I think at this day and age, it's important to think about, well, is that really true? And is it possible for me to really explore business ownership as a secure career route, right? So I don't see anything in chat as far as people sharing, and that's okay, totally fine. But if I'm mistaken about that, Zach, please feel free to let me know.
Erika, we had somebody share via the question module.
Okay, fine.
This person said that after 17 years in the same company, stress has resulted in panic attacks and anxiety, and this person's considering getting out now as a positive change for their mental health.
Oh, wow. So, right. So it's perfect example of, how, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, of, feeling that security maybe earlier on in your career, and then all of a sudden things start to change later on, which is, what we're seeing more and more these days. It's just not that same security. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Zach, anything else? I'm not seeing the question menu. So I don't know if you can point me in the right direction there, or if you want to just let me know if you see some comments, because we'll probably have a few more of those.
Right now, Erika, but I'll let you know if anything else comes up.
Perfect, Zach. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the business ownership options. I want to talk a little bit as far as the advantages and disadvantages of these different options to get into business for yourself, right? So you can start a business from scratch, right? That's what I did. I started an independent bookstore and a coffee roaster, a coffee business. And that's not to say, though, that I did it by myself. I had consultants. I had people helping me. I always knew that I could not do that in a vacuum. I had never sold books before. I had never roasted coffee before. I'd never actually even ever had really managed people before. So, but that's one way. Buying an existing business can be a great way to get into business for yourself, right? We'll talk about the advantages of that. And then buying a franchise. And, this is where we see a lot of times, there's a lot of sort of misunderstanding, and a lot of times I think that the idea of investing in a franchise to become a business owner sort of gets overlooked. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And the other thing that I don't have up here is that you can get into business for yourself as a consultant. I mean, that's what I'm doing now, right? It's almost like creating a portfolio of business, right? That's another great way. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that today, but becoming a 1099 contract worker, especially if you have experience and skills to share with people and can help people get into business for themselves, or any other kind of consulting, whether it's sales, that's definitely another way in which to get into business. Okay. So starting a business from scratch, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly here. I also would love it if people want to put it in the question or chat. If you are thinking already considering business ownership, or you started your research or due diligence, I'd love to hear what everybody is thinking as far as, are they thinking of starting business from scratch? Are you thinking of buying an existing business? Have you already maybe looked into franchising or consulting? Would love to hear what people have to say that way. So as far as starting a business from scratch, right, some of the advantages are that you do have that total control, right? You can make all the decisions. There's that room for creativity, right? There's no predetermined rules, right? You can really decide how you want your business to be, or what the products and services are that you want to provide. Especially can be advantageous if you have an invention, right? And with that in mind, there can be that large upside, right? We all like to hear about those, two 20-year-olds who started a business in their garage, and all of a sudden it's an Apple-like, huge business. So there can potentially be a large upside, and again, you can build that business from your passion. So some of the obvious disadvantages, right, is that you must create that system. And I can attest to the fact that that takes a long time, even with help, even with industry help, and then that can kind of cause problems with slower ramp up, right? Oftentimes we hear it takes 3 to 5 years at least to get to profitability from starting a business from scratch. You often may have limited financial options, right? Banks don't love businesses from scratch, right? They love their proof of financials. And obviously we all hear, that there is a high failure rate. And in fact, just generally, I'll spit spit these numbers out here and there. 50%, there is a 50% failure rate after 5 years of small businesses in general. And the other important thing to think about here too is that, why do businesses fail, especially businesses that are starting from scratch? And, I have some statistics here, 82% fail due to cash flow issues. That's the biggest one. My dad always told me, cash is king. And if you don't have what you need to have, your working capital in the beginning, chances are that you're not going to be able to withstand that ramp up time. The other reasons, 42% actually end up, there's not a lot of market need. We might have a brilliant idea for a product or service, but then, to come to find out that people don't necessarily want it, so it's very important to find all those things out. And then 23% they say is that it's just they don't have the owner didn't put the right team together, right? And that's so much about being real with what your skills are and what your gaps are and those kinds of things, and thinking about those things up front. So important. So I always kind of like to talk through those things. Buying an existing business, you can see there can potentially be a ton of advantages here. You've got the existing cash flow. You may very well have existing goodwill, both in the community and with the current employees that are there. You have those actual financial results to do your due diligence to find out if this is a business that you feel good about buying. You are going to be more attractive to lenders because of those financial results. And the proof in the business already, and the market that is established. You may, again, have that existing customer base and existing employees. And you already have potentially, if the previous owner has done their job well, you may already have good, solid systems in place that you're just adopting. The other pieces or other advantages that you may have the opportunity to do owner financing. And what I mean by that is the person that you're buying from will actually hold paper on the business so that you're paying them monthly in order to buy the business. So that can be a real advantage there. Some of the disadvantages, it's kind of interesting as far as existing business, because some of the disadvantages can be the opposite of what the advantages are, right? So you may be buying a business at a great price, but that's because their cash flow isn't so good right now, right? Or maybe there's bad will in the community or with the employees, and there's a lot of fixing to do, On the flip side of that, if things are going really well in the business, it could potentially, and oftentimes are overpriced. You could be getting into a situation where there's been poor training or some hidden seller motives or some employee defection, but you might not see that happen until you're running the business because people don't like the change. So there are definitely some disadvantages. The other thing I like to point out here too is there's a statistic that around 2/3 of businesses, existing businesses, are sold to family and friends or to existing employees, right? My family owned a business and we ended up selling it to the manager. He was ready to do it. He was able to do it. And, it was almost more at that point his baby than ours. And that's a very typical way that people exit, right, their businesses. So sometimes you have to also think about, well, if this business is on the market and a family or a friend or an employee didn't buy it, do I need to find out why that is? So something to think about there and keep in mind. Jack, any comments about how people are thinking about going into business for themselves?
A couple of general questions about sort of the pathway to start in terms of technically forming a business. Things
Okay.
like registering for a DBA or an LLC, those types of things.
Okay. I would say for the purpose of today and for us to move forward, I would highly recommend this is what your SBDC office is there for. I definitely will share the Mohawk Valley SBDC's contact information. They are there as a free service to help you with all of that. They are so knowledgeable about those things. So Zach, if you have any other comments about that right now, otherwise I think I'll just continue.
Thank you, Erika, and I agree. I would encourage
Okay.
anyone with questions like that to please reach out to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so advantages and disadvantages of investing in a franchise. So we're going to talk about some of these things more. Some of the advantages are you have name recognition already or a licensed trademark. Honestly, we do have a lot of franchises and that we represent that people wouldn't necessarily recognize, but we have a lot of names, say like Meineke or Supercuts or Pearl Vision. Some people don't even realize they're a franchise, but you have that name recognition, and sometimes that's really important to people. What's most important about franchising is that you are investing in a proven business system. That is really what franchising is all about, and that includes that training and support that's going to be there for you, and also the marketing that's available and all of their expertise, and also just the track record, right? They're already up and running in so many areas and that kind of thing. So obviously there's a lower failure rate. I didn't mention before, but with existing business, if somebody buys, it's about a 62% success rate over 5 years. With franchising, it's 92% success rate over 5 years. So you can see how that training and support in those business systems can, really create that lower failure rate. Oftentimes, and this comes as a surprise to many, is that investing in a franchise is actually at a lower cost than the investment that you will, put into a business from scratch, and especially buying an existing business or a resale. You may have a lot more financing options. Banks tend to really like franchises because of that proven business system, right? And you also have franchise disclosure document to review in your due diligence and research. Franchises are government regulated, so they are required to have an FDD, and that FDD will provide so much information and a lot of transparency and often sharing, financials and that kind of thing that you wouldn't otherwise have to help you decide if it's the right thing. And you also have a franchise family, right? You are, if you're doing your research right and you make a good decision for yourself, you're also investing in a culture that feels right to you, right? And you have that franchise family and those other franchisees to be there and to be supportive of you. So some of the disadvantages, I think the biggest one is that sometimes there can be fewer industry options, right? So if you feel a passion toward, cat grooming or something like that, you may not find a franchise out there who, offers that kind of business model. Sometimes the operating systems can be very structured, and that's in some franchises, not all. There can be territory restrictions. You might get really excited about a specific concept and find out that they're sold out in your territory. And sometimes you can only sell their proprietary products, and you will, in most cases, be paying an ongoing royalty payment. But again, that is in exchange for some really great things that go along with that. In this day and age, and with the pandemic and everything, we are thinking about risk reduction more than ever. And if you are concerned about, how the economy might impact your business or the pandemic, there are ways to lower the risk, by looking for businesses with specific market characteristics. And what I mean by that is that many businesses thrive in all economic conditions, right? So what we call these recession-resistant or essential service businesses, and we'll hear from Five Star Painting more about that because they are considered an essential service business. But some other examples, growing markets driven by demographics. Senior care is huge right now. We have, I think it's 8,000 to 10,000 people every day are turning 65. So this is a huge demographic or huge industry right now that will continue to be recession resistant because those services will continue to be needed and needed even more. Residential repair and cleaning services. Other ones that do well in recessions, right? Automotive, because people will take care of their cars versus buying new. Even hair salons too, because people will look for a cheap haircut during recession, right? And also B2B businesses, right? Businesses that help other small businesses, whether it's sign companies or digital marketing or business coaching, or sales or training. And we actually have a lot of several staffing franchises that we represent too. Big business. And while we're hearing more and more that, restaurants are really struggling and trying to survive and getting the help that they need, and even fitness concepts too, there have been these recession-resistant businesses and in these industries that have really been booming over the last year or so with the pandemic too, because of ongoing need. Home modification and repair is another great example where people were starting to do that kind of work on their house and needed these services. So again, a franchise is a license to use a name and trademark product and systems in exchange for an initial franchise fee and ongoing royalties. I'm going to skip over that because we talked about that. Franchises also are not all the same. If you do start to do your research or start to get help, you'll find out that some franchises have a ton of 500 franchisees across the country. Other ones are fewer units. There can be many reasons for that. You will see franchises out there that are very well established, maybe have been around for 30 years, and also many that are newer. We call them emerging brands, right? Again, some will have the structured system, and others will have more flexible system, and that's a really important key way in which we help to match our clients. What is the right fit for our clients that way? And some are going to be more expensive and others are going to be less expensive. And you have to remember too, this is important, that there is no automatic correlation between the cost, your initial investment, right, of the franchise and the potential return you can get, right, on that. So important things to remember. So we like to say in the franchising industry that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Okay, so let's move on here. I'm going to see if we can move through this fairly quickly and get to our Q&A session. But if people would love to share what they think about some of these myths and facts about franchising, like I said before, we tend to see that there's a lot of misunderstanding and some overlooked options to getting into business when we think about the perceptions of franchising. And one of the things I think is a problem is that franchising, first of all, it sounds a lot like French fries, but people think it's all fast food, and all of that. So my first question, I just answered it for us, but if you guys would love to interact and let me know what you think about this, franchising is only fast food and retail. Myth or fact? Zach, you may have to share some of this with me as far as responses.
I'll let you know if I see anything.
Okay. All right. Well, for sake of time, let's keep going. Yep. So obviously, franchising is much more than fast food. So the facts are that there are over 3,600 different franchise companies out there. That's a lot if you think about it, in more than 90 different industries and with over 900,000 operating units. So you can see here some of the other industry segments, right? We talked about B2B services, retail products and services, personal services, automotive, and senior care. We talked about that too, and all of the home modification and restoration, which we'll talk more about today with our franchisor. So many different industries, and I think a lot of people don't realize, and so kind of once you look past the idea that it's more than food, right, and French fries, there are some really interesting, business concepts out there to consider. So next, myth or fact, and I'm just going to keep going through these here, there are low-cost franchise opportunities. So I always like to point out here that I understand that low cost means, different things to different people. That's a very subjective opinion. However, I do like to make sure that people know that basically over 50% of the franchise concepts out there are around a total investment of $250,000 or less. And a lot of the concepts that we represent are in that price range or investment range. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about funding options and that kind of thing here too, because people think, oh, well, I don't have $250,000, but really, I mean, most franchises are being purchased with the help of a commercial loan, whether it be an SBA loan or an unsecured loan. So people are mostly having to come up with that 25 to 30%, right? That's your money, that's your cash. And it's almost like buying a house, right? You're getting the loan for the rest. And so how do people getting to that 25 to 30%? Well, some people do have that in their personal savings. Some are getting into business with friend, relative, or partner, or other maybe angel investor. Most oftentimes, we're finding people finding that 25 to 30% in a home equity line of credit, seller financing if it's a resale, like I mentioned before, and very oftentimes taking a piece or a part of a 401k that you built or an IRA, and there are very, very specific ways to do this. We work with funding partners who are very good at helping our clients figure out the right way for them, and oftentimes it is that 401k rollover, and this is done in a very special way for business owners. It's called a ROBS program, and there are other ones out there. It's a terrible acronym, but it stands for some, rollover for business. And it really can allow an owner even to pay themselves in the beginning during ramp up. So these are all financing sources that if you are starting your due diligence and getting serious about things, and this is even not just with franchising, but if you're thinking about business ownership in general, really, really creative funding options that, allow people to think, oh, maybe I really can do this. Maybe this really is a possibility for me. Okay, myth or fact, you don't need industry experience. So this is a biggie, and I hear this a lot with clients at first when I am talking to them about specific franchises, and they think, oh, well, I've never, sold this product or service before. I can't do this. I don't know anything about it. Well, the truth is that franchisors want people who will use their system, not necessarily be and not usually be an expert in the industry. In fact, they typically prefer that you don't be. They're not looking for hairstylists necessarily to become the franchisor. They're looking for people with the business and management skills, and especially with the people and communication skills in order to hire correctly and in order to provide exceptional customer service. That's what's important typically for a franchisor when they're looking for great candidates for their business. And then franchisors will train the franchisee on how to use their system and what they need to know about the industry and the product and the service. Okay, so any questions, Zach, that you feel like I need to address right now versus at the end before or after our Q&A with Gary and Michael?
Nothing right now.
Okay, great. Okay, I just wanted to check on time a little bit. All right. I'm 2 minutes late, not too bad, and I hope I didn't run through that too quickly. But Gary and Michael, if you could join me on camera, that would be great. Oops. Hello.
Hey there.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. I do want to introduce Gary Sipes. He is with 5 Star Painting. He is a franchise developer for 5 Star, and also Michael Nungesser, and he is a franchisee with 5 Star Painting. Welcome, and thank you again both for being here with us. Zach, can you see us all, the 3 of us?
Erika, I can't see you.
Oh. There we go. I was wondering if it was just me. Sorry about that. So anyway, welcome both Gary and Michael. And Gary, I want to start our Q&A off just by asking you, tell us a little bit about your specific role at 5 Star.
Yeah, so I am the franchise developer and also the vice president of development for 5 Star Painting and another concept called Glass Doctor. I've been with the company 6 years, and we have grown just exponentially over that last 6 years to where we now currently, our umbrella company is called Neighborly, and we have 16 different franchises in the U.S. currently.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, and we feel free to talk a little bit more about Neighborly too in general. Very strong parent company for many of these essential service businesses. So tell us a little bit, what does 5 Star Painting as a business and also as a franchisor do?
So yes, so we truly are a painting business. We do residential and light commercial. One thing to really know here is that our franchise owners do not do any painting. That's a common misconception, is that they're going to actually do painting. We're looking for business owners who actually run the operations day to day, but not do any painting. So our model uses subcontractors to actually do the painting. So we let the pros do the painting and let our business owners kind of run the business. As a franchisor, we are here just to help navigate through and find the best possible candidates for our business in select markets throughout the U.S. And then also to support them with the initial training and then backup training. All of our owners are assigned a business coach as well as a local marketing specialist to help them with their business plans. And so the support runs through the entire agreement. So once you're in business with us, it's a 10-year agreement, and we're here to support you through the life of that agreement.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, because a lot of times, you know, it's important for people to understand both what 5-Star does and also what you do as a franchisor, for sure. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to back up just a little bit. You had said, you know, that you're not looking for people to do the painting, but you also said that 5-Star subcontracts all the work too, right? So that if I'm correct, that means that, say, Michael is not hiring a whole staff of painters too, right? But is subcontracting that work. Is that correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So, hey, Michael, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Would love to hear more. Tell us about just generally your background.
Okay, so I've been doing this. I'm going on my 7th year now, 5-Star painting. I've been in the home improvement field pretty much my whole career. Prior to 5-Star painting, I worked as a managing partner with a exterior home remodeling company, national brand, and I had home improvement knowledge. I didn't really have painting knowledge, but I would say that being in the home improvement industry isn't a prerequisite to join 5-Star painting.
Okay, right. We talked about that a little bit before, so I appreciate you clarifying that. And Gary, you could chime in about that too, as far as, you know, the other backgrounds of your other franchisees too.
Yes, for sure, Erica. So I would say 90% literally of our owners had zero painting knowledge, zero painting background. There's that small percentage that actually did, that were in painting, and then just kind of hit their head on that proverbial ceiling to where they needed to grow the business. But the majority are folks that come out of management or sales, or they're executives, and they're just looking for their next career piece to kind of get to that financial goal of retirement. And business ownership is a great way to do that.
Yeah. Michael, tell us where you are in the country.
I'm in Central Georgia.
Central Georgia. Okay. All right. And so you've been in business for 7 years or so. Do you have one territory there?
No, so initially I started with one, and it's pretty much my home area right around where I live. I started with that, and after 3 years, I bought a second territory and started developing that. And just last year, I bought my third territory. So there's different ways to grow within neighborly. You can grow with the same concept and grow geographically, or you could grow with multiple concepts in the same area. So for me, I was confident with the business model that I was very familiar with, and it wasn't hard for me to grow in a separate territory. So I bought another territory outside of Atlanta, about an hour away from my house, and then my third territory is in Columbus, Georgia, about an hour away from my house. So I'm actually built 3 separate businesses within driving distance. I can go there if I need to for a meeting or something like that. But my teams there are pretty much independent, and we have weekly meetings all at the local office near my house.
Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about the end, as far as, you know, people really starting to think about how they see themselves in business, you know, and their preferences. Did you plan on increasing your territories from the beginning? Did you see yourself doing that?
Well, I always like to make money. So the bigger you are, the more money you can make. And what I discovered was you can grow to a certain size with one territory. And as far as marketing and stuff, you really have to get into the more expensive means of marketing to keep digging the same hole deeper. So to grow geographically and just buy another territory, you can get a lot of that low-hanging fruit for fairly inexpensive marketing dollars and grow faster that way. So, but you don't want to just buy 3 million worth of territory and just start dabbling all around. You want to feel like you're saturated in one territory before you move on to the next.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Any comments about that, Gary?
Yeah. So to kind of expand on what Michael was alluding to, the second way that you can grow within Neighborly is if your territory gets kind of to the point where it's saturated, you can actually add a second brand or even a third brand later on. Neighborly has 16 brands, and so you can utilize that existing customer base that you already have and add an additional brand or concept.
And tell me why somebody would do that versus just increasing their territory under one brand.
So a lot of our systems here at Neighborly are kind of the same, to where we've got the same marketing techniques, same training, and all of our businesses are home services. And so a new owner could use the existing customer base, and the marketing would be a little easier based on the fact that they've already made those customers satisfied in the past.
Right. So you're just offering another service to the potentially same customer base plus some, right? Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you for explaining that. Michael, tell us a little bit about what made you decide on business ownership. I know you started to explain a little bit, but what made you decide to do this?
So prior to this, I was a managing partner, which I owned 25% of the location, which means I did not own 75% of it. The corporate office of the previous employer owned the other 75%. So I quickly realized I didn't really have a vote because 75% of their view is much more than my 25%. We had a lot of turnover on the senior management side at the corporate office there, and they were always throwing out they want to come out with their brand new ideas, which weren't really new ideas. They were new to them, but old to us, I was doing it for 10 years. So they would come out with these new ideas that we've already tried and failed upon. So it was just frustrating for me to keep, seeing things not succeed. So, we had some success, and then the economy was weird and all that stuff. And then we get new leadership and it just changes. So I wanted something where I had more control, but for me, I had to recoup a significant amount of income fairly quickly. So I wanted to find something where I can get started and make good money quick. And that's what led me to 5-Star Painting, or even just a franchise concept. I felt like I can grow a lot faster in a franchise concept than just being an independent, I'm going to start a paint company type thing. So I started that, and then the reason I kind of went into the direction of 5-Star Painting, when I was looking into franchise options, I was working with like a career coach, and basically he would ask all these questions and find out what my background was, what my income desires were, and then pair me up with a few different options. And I realized in the franchise world, what I thought was you'd have to, for a low entry threshold franchise, the income potential is fairly low. And for a high entry threshold franchise, the income potential is fairly high. Which I found was unique with 5-Star Painting is I was able to get into a low entry threshold business that had an unlimited income potential, because it was pretty much what you made of it. You're buying a territory and they provide the tools and speed of the leader. It was what was I going to do with it? If I was going to buy a Subway, no matter how awesome of a leader I am, that Subway, one unit is only going to do so much. So I was looking at different options, and I liked that this had a great return on investment for me for what I had to come up with and what my income potential was.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I want to switch gears a little bit, Gary. I mean, as we know right now, the landscape of business has changed a bit due to COVID, or for some anyway. So how has 5-Star Painting been affected? And what has the company done to ensure the, future success of the franchisees in your?
Sure. Yeah. So COVID was a weird dynamic at first. I would say that as the franchisor, we really didn't have that big of an impact. As soon as the pandemic really hit, that first month, everything kind of slowed down a little bit. And we as a franchisor worked with our owners to develop a way to do virtual estimates and we were quickly deemed an essential service, and so they were able to get back in and start doing work. As the franchisor, we wanted to make sure that we helped out to get some of those PPP loans, to make sure that we could clear path them to ways to find resources and money, and then work with them as well on ways to get through the pandemic. Year over year, from 2019 to 2020, we were still up as a franchisor, so better than the prior year, still growing through that. And our sales are great. The one thing that we found is that during that pandemic, people were staying at home and looking at their walls and looking at their homes to where they normally didn't have time. And so our sales went up. Our franchisors were more busy, but I think Michael could probably expand on this because he was there doing it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in Georgia, so that's a little bit different than maybe New York. But we were pretty much open state. There was a lot of demand because people were at home and they did notice what things they wanted to have happen around the house, not just with painting, but I mean, all home services, I think, across the board were in high demand. There was probably a little bit of pent up demand. So like our spring was a little softer than it normally would be. But then last year's summer and fall was super high demand. So I was up 15% year over year. And you know, it wasn't a problem for me. When I first saw all this stuff like shut down and stuff, I started getting a little scared. But yeah, I mean, we were able to get PPP loan. I think I got like $92,000 PPP loan. And at the same time, we never shut down. So that money was invested back into the business. That's why I bought a third territory, and I bought vehicles for my business and things like that. And it was 100% forgiven at the end of the year. So it was free money for me.
Yeah. And you know, we do have to feel for the restaurants and the fitness concepts and those other franchises out there that have not fared so well. But I do think that a lot of people don't realize, you know, that, you know, these other business, your business and other businesses in this segment, you know, it's been a different story for you guys. It really has. So Michael, tell me a little bit about other advantages, disadvantages of starting a business as a franchisee, you know, versus starting a business from scratch or buying existing business. What are your thoughts that way?
Well, I guess thoughts are like starting with a franchise, you're going to have basically a whole slew of team of people to help get you going in the right direction. I mean, we have like a Sure Start coordinator, gets everything set up. Somebody had a question about where do you go for, you know, registering S Corp and all that stuff. We have all those tools at our franchisor. But then for marketing, we have a marketing team. For operations, we have operational support. We have a franchise business coach that's pretty much going to get you moving in the right direction. It's going to save you tons of money as far as mistakes you might make as an independent operator. One thing for me, I thought I can get up and running as a fairly large business faster with a franchise than being independent, just because I can hit the ground running. You know, we do have ongoing support. So I say not just with the franchisor support, but the other franchisees. I mean, I have peer groups I'm a part of that I'm on the phone with them or texting, or we're in group chats all the time talking about customer issues, or talking about, you know, marketing investments and different things like that we do. We do have support within the team. I do think long term a franchise is going to be better for resale value. If I was an independent operator, like right now, this year, I'll do about $3.5 million in business. If I was an independent operator and I'm trying to sell my business as Michael's Painting or whatever I branded it to be, it would be harder to sell that than if I was tied to 5-Star Painting, and not just 5-Star Painting, but also the Enabler brand. So resale value down the road, that's why I continue to invest in it, is the resale value, that the potential there. And I'm not looking to sell anytime soon, but that they will come eventually.
Awesome. So I'm hearing a ton of advantages as far as the system, the support, the training, the marketing, the resale potential. Any disadvantages?
Well, I would say, I mean, every month when you do your financial and you see your royalties, you know, that's like, oh wow, that's a big chunk. So I would say, like, you just got to figure that as a line item expense in your financial. But at the end of the day, if I look at the net income and where am I where I want to be, that's more important than what I'm spending to get there.
Yeah, that sounds very relative and all relative in your case at this point after 7 years. Yeah. Gary, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, yes, I'd love to touch back on the resale piece. So once you do come to the end of your term and you do decide you want to sell, and as part of the agreement, you can sell anytime that you like within the agreement. The great thing that Michael alluded to is that when you go to sell a franchise, it's basically throwing them the keys. So you don't have to stay on for a year and do the training and support. We have all of that already. So when you go to sell your business, you literally sign the papers and walk away. And we, as the franchisor, will pick up where the owner left off and start to train them and get them up to speed immediately. And so there's that ease of transition as well.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that's a huge advantage, can be a huge advantage for sure. So Gary, I just want to ask you before we wrap this up. I mean, you talked a little bit about it before, but you know what you're really looking for in a potential franchisee. Anything else as far as specific skills or anything?
No, I tell you what, it's wide open. We truly have owners, female owners, male owners, husband-wife teams. We've got folks in their 20s that are owners, and then folks that are in their 60s. And so we've got just a wide variety of opportunity because the system is the system. It's the same no matter where you're at or which market. There are different marketing tactics and techniques depending on the marketplace and the area, whether it's metropolitan or if it's mid-market size. But we're looking for mainly people that are good at managing other folks or that are not afraid of speaking with others. If you connect well, if you have great communication, then you're going to be very successful. We are a business to where you are talking to customers on a daily basis, and so if that's kind of a pain point, then we want to make sure that you hired someone that did have that skill set, and maybe you could just do the backside operations and kind of run the team instead of being in front of the actual consumer. But it's a one size fits all, and we are looking for folks everywhere in the specific New York market. The upstate market has a lot of potential for 5-star, everywhere from Buffalo to Poughkeepsie, Utica, Syracuse. There's just a ton of places to where we've got opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's for 5-star, but also some of the other neighborly brands too. I know that there's open territory for many, and there are also existing franchisees I know in the neighborly brand in Rochester and Buffalo, and maybe a couple in Syracuse too. So it's not all completely open, but I think generally speaking, there's quite a bit of territory availability up here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So I guess my last question to you, and because I do want to, I have a couple other things to talk about, and I do want to open it up to any questions too. Just any advice to someone looking into becoming a business owner, or specifically a franchisee, from both of you, or
I would say, like for me, I mean, just because you're buying a franchise doesn't mean that you bought something that's going to just grow on its own. So you do have to put effort within your own thing. Hey, I'm on a call right now, but okay, sorry about that. I would say that you got to put forth the effort. And the ones that I know that succeed in this, they put forth effort. And the ones that don't, no matter what concept it is or anything, they just they don't put forth effort. And then also, I mean, everything is there in a franchise to follow the system. And if there's no reason to reinvent the wheel and not follow the system that's already in place if you want to grow fast and succeed in this type of business.
Great. So we often talk in the franchise industry about the playbook of a business, right, Gary? That there is that this system is there, and if you can follow it, you're willing to follow it. It's already been proven. So but that doesn't mean there's not work involved. It's a business, right? So we all have to be real about our willingness to do the work as well. Yeah. Any thoughts about that, Gary?
Yeah, so it truly doesn't run itself. It's got all the systems designed to be successful with the right owner. We've got everything in place. If you were to just poll our top 40% of owners, or even the top 1%, and ask them why they're successful, it's because they say that they follow the system and they work hard, and that's the truth. We're pretty selective on who we take in. We want to build equity in the brand, and so we know that the business ownership is not for everybody, but it is for a lot of people, and so we want to make sure that our candidates are the right fit for 5-star, that they're going to follow our systems, follow the model, and each time that we bring someone in, if they're as good or better than the next guy, then that brand just keeps building equity, and we don't have anybody falling out of the system. As you alluded to, the success rate is 92%, and so our goal is 100%. So finding the right folks is key to us as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining me today with this Q&A. If you can hang in with me for a few minutes, I just have a couple other things I want to mention to everybody, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So thank you very much, Michael and Gary. And I'm going to shut my camera off now. And just a couple other things to share. And I think, one sec. Okay. I think what Michael and Gary were talking about, as far as, finding the right business and everything is so important. We really work closely with our clients to help you determine, what is going to help you, find your purpose in a business. And so much of that is getting real right from the start as far as what your business preferences are, right? It's not just about what you can give to your business. It's about what do you want your business to do for you, and in choosing a business, really starting to think hard about these things. For instance, the necessary skills. Can you afford it? And it's not just about whether you can afford it, it's about your comfort level in the investment, right? And this is not just about franchising, this is about any business, right? And does it give you that feeling of not necessarily fulfilling a passion, but your purpose, right? And what you're doing day to day. What does that business provide you? And these are really important things that we go through with our client. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a sec. I wanted to go quickly through the typical timeline if someone were interested in doing research on franchising or becoming a franchisee. I'll try to do this very quickly. Really the first step is to initiate, attend a seminar or webinar, and that's exactly what you're doing today. Reach out to your SBDC office. If the Mohawk Valley isn't in your area, I certainly can help point you in the right direction so that they can help you determine, which way you should go as far as your research into business ownership. If you are interested in sort of exploring, and again, there's no obligation in doing this, you could set up an initial conversation with your local FranNet consultant, which most likely would be me, but you can contact me through the SBDC office. And we have a personal franchise assessment that we do, and I was just talking about these business preferences and everything. This is really the way we help our clients start the process and initiate all the things that need to be considered. This is not, this is really the first step with us, and then we will sit down and talk more about, but the franchise assessment is really kind of taking like a personality assessment, like a DISC or a Myers-Briggs, but specifically for business ownership and you trying to decide what's next. And this is in order for us to kind of sit down with you after you take the assessment to go over and develop this business model, and we're asking you to think about your preferences in a very detailed way and getting real, not just with, your investment level or your budget, but how many employees do you see yourself having? What's the business environment? Do you want to work from home? Do you want an office? Do you want to work retail or in a quick service restaurant? Are you looking to work full-time, or are you hoping to scale back into more of a semi-absentee model eventually? What kind of hours are you looking to do? Number of units, like Michael was talking about. Do you see yourself just having one territory, or do you really want to expand and grow and create that equity? So all of these things are so important as far as thinking about business ownership and your preferences and how you see yourself in your business. So important. And again, those transferable skills that you'll bring to the table, whether it's sales and marketing, customer service, or all of the above, you know, are super important to think about. What are you bringing to the table, and what gaps do you need to fill? You know, you may not love sales, so what do you need to do to you know, start this business, operate this business, and find somebody else to do the sales, you know, if that's an option. So the next step, if you've initiated and you've thought about this, you've started to maybe work with your advisor or with a franchise consultant, is to have, you know, work with your consultant to identify those 3 to 4 franchise businesses, and then do those interviews with the franchisors. That usually starts off with a 45-minute call or so, and review the disclosure document like I talked about, and interviewing those franchisees within those 3 to 4 businesses. We call this the validation process, and this is the most important. You are going to learn so much from those franchisees. And then also, simultaneously, we always recommend that people start their funding process and figuring out what their options are, because you don't want that to waylay you, and often it can. With our clients who are looking at SBA loans right now, there's been a delay because of the pandemic that way. So we always encourage people to get that in line as soon as possible, no matter what you decide to do. And then after all the research and due diligence you're doing with those 2, 3, 4 maybe franchisors, you're getting more serious potentially about 1 or 2. You would attend what we call a discovery day. All franchisors have them. They're usually in person, but during the pandemic they've been more virtually, but hopefully that will be changing soon. This is really typically a day or 2 of full immersion in the business, getting to know the people that are part of the business, running, operating the franchisor. Other franchisees would typically be involved. It's really sort of your last step to decide which direction you'd like to go into. And then we also always want you to be reaching out to your local resources, including you know, your CPA that should be involved and should be reviewing your FDD with you. Align with your outside resources always. Finalizing your financing, then you will go through an awarding process with the franchisor, and then once you sign your contract, you will start to do what we, you know, the typical startup, as far as if you have build out or getting the business up and running, getting your sales and marketing together, getting your team together, and then eventually that exciting grand opening. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the timeline that we take our clients through. I know the SBDC has, you know, probably their own timeline if somebody's looking to start their business from scratch or looking to buy a business. I'm assuming that with the due diligence is probably very similar. So with that, I would like to open it up to any questions that might be out there for me or for Gary or Michael.
Sure, Erica. Let's start with one for you, but Gary and Michael, feel free to chime in as well. This person was asking, it was kind of a broad question just about how profit margins could potentially be impacted in a franchise situation as opposed to an independently owned business. So does a franchise necessarily offer lower profit margins than an independently owned business?
Offer lower profit margins?
Correct.
Okay. Not necessarily at all. You know, and I don't know if that's the question is related to maybe because due to royalty payments.
I think that's what. Yes.
Yeah. You know, the flip side to that is that, you know, typically with a franchise, you know, you're looking at quicker ramp up, and oftentimes, and, you know, we can't make these claims because a lot of the times it's just like Michael was saying, you know, it's all in what the person is doing with their business, right? And the effort that's being put forth. But there's a lot of opportunity that the business systems from a franchise can create, you know, quicker profitability, you know, and all of the marketing and support that is ongoing, not just at the beginning, and the knowledge that is provided by the franchisor and the support from peers and everything, you know, certainly has the opportunity to, you know, create a bigger profitability that way, despite those royalty payments. Gary, do you have anything to share that way?
Sure. Yeah. So with all franchising, typically the pricing is set and structured so that the royalties are paid by the customers, by the consumers. And so although once your business is very successful, like Michael's, that number seems pretty big every month for sure. But the revenue coming in, we're trying to help price that to where the consumer pays for that. Also, when you buy into a business and you have an initial franchise fee, you can actually write that fee off over the 10-year agreement. So the government does have regulations on how much you can the first year, and then amortize it over the lifespan of the contract, where you can get some of that initial fee back.
Yeah, that's all good, really good information. And I will say here too, just for general information, that we find, typically that initial franchise fee and also royalty percentages, that yes, they do vary a bit, but things tend to stay pretty much the same across from franchisor to franchisor. That way, your whole total initial investment, those ranges can be big, anywhere from under $100,000 to $1 million, right? If you're investing in something like several McDonald's or something in time, but that's because of the equipment that you might need to invest in that specific business, or the build out that's required in a restaurant or something, that can make a big difference between those investment ranges, if that makes sense.
Great, thank
Zach,
you.
other questions?
Yes. So Michael, you spoke a bit about how in your previous job you felt that you had a lack of control over the decision-making process that led you to explore other options, and ultimately you found yourself with Five Star Painting. So can you speak a bit about sort of whether you found that you have the control that you were seeking in this franchise? I think that sometimes people may equate franchises with sort of not having that control as the business owner. So what has your experience been like with Five Star?
We're completely, pretty much independent when it comes to our decision making. We do have to operate in an ethical manner, with the law. But when I choose to do certain marketing, it's not money that they're dictating where that money is being spent, or product offerings, or pricing, or anything like that. With my previous experience, they tried to centralize ad buys nationally to all local markets, which is super difficult to do. Also, what type of products we're offering. Like, we don't just do painting. We're Five Star Painting. We do, home repairs. We do gutters. We do, gutter topper. We do a lot of different things, and those are all my decisions. So, like I said, we have to operate ethically and within the law. But we don't want to do anything to harm the name. But there's no input where they're saying, well, you can't do this or you can't do that. I mean, we are limited, like as far as our logo usage. That needs to be approved. Like, how do we present our logo, and how do we present the brand? Because they want to protect that nationally. That's not just to tie my hands. It's to help me build my brand. A much bigger brand than I actually am right now. So I don't have a problem with any of that.
Erika, would you say that Michael's experience is typical, or do different franchises exert different levels of control over their franchisees?
Yeah, there are different levels. Chick-fil-A is a great example of a concept that really requires a lot of strict following of their rules and regulations, and certainly there is some of that. But I think I mentioned before that there are some franchisors who are more flexible. Sometimes the newer, more emerging franchises are really looking for their franchisees to have a seat at the table, right? They're the ones that are out there on a day-to-day basis, doing the work and finding out what's working the best. So yes, it does differ, and that again is an important sort of business preference thing to pay attention to. We make sure we know our client's preference, or what think will work best for them as far as adhering to strict regulations and rules. But again, I would say to answer your question directly, that most of the time, I mean, there's definitely flexibility there, and people have to remember that you still own your own local business, even though you are a franchisee, and that typically there's going to be that flexibility to make a lot of those choices.
Thank you. Gary, you spoke a bit about the process for vetting potential franchisees. I think that's an important thing to consider here, that the franchisor is looking for the right fit as well. So Erika, what role does FranNet play in that process, making sure both that the franchisee is a good fit and that the business model is a good fit for them, but also that the person is a good fit for the franchisor.
Yeah, I mean, we play a pretty big role in that initially. It's important for us to, you know, especially for our clients, to be presenting franchises that are obviously that good fit for them. But it's equally important for us to introduce, you know, our clients to franchisors, and have it be a good thing for the franchisor too, right? You know, initially anyway. But the franchisor is obviously involved pretty quickly in the process. Like I mentioned, that there's the initial conversation that would be had if our clients are interested in speaking to specific franchises, and they're having those initial conversations too, and determining whether or not they are a good fit for one another. And Gary, would you say that that's accurate for you?
Absolutely, Erika. It's part of that where we'll have conversations, and then there's an approval process throughout each franchisor. With 5 Star Painting, they'll have 2 to 3 conversations with their franchise developer. They're going to speak with a few owners, and so we're going to get feedback from the owners that they talk to when they're doing validation. We're going to talk collectively in the office, and then ultimately, when they come to meet the team day, they kind of get to meet the entire team, and so we'll then have a team chat about that candidate to make sure that we didn't see anything that maybe wouldn't be a good fit. We know it's not for everybody, and so we understand that. Our goal is not just to sell franchises. It's to find the right people that are going to be passionate and help grow the business. And so we don't want to bring down the standards by just letting anybody in. And so it's a selection process, but the parameters fit almost anyone. There's a few folks that we've had that were kind of just true entrepreneurs. Sometimes those guys don't fit the franchise mold. They would rather start something on their own, and so we identify that as well.
Exactly. And that behooves and is the right thing for everybody involved, right? And it definitely goes both ways, you know, as far as that decision process, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
That's all we have for questions. Was there anything else that any of you would like to add?
I would just add, well, first of all, Michael, Gary, anything else that's come to mind?
No, thanks for having us.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here again. Appreciate it. I do want to just mention, I did just share the Mohawk Valley SBDC contact info. Hope everybody can see that. And then this is my direct number too, and email address if you want to reach out. But I would highly suggest going through the SBDC office to just talk to them first, and then they can put you in touch with me as well. That would be great. And Zach, anything else?
That's about it. I just want to thank you guys for joining us. Gary and Michael, really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedules to join us today, and really appreciate your perspectives. Erika, thanks very much for presenting, and thanks to everybody who attended today. Hope that you found this to be useful information, and would encourage you to please reach out to our office to discuss the possibilities for franchising or starting a business in another way. We work closely with Erika all the time, and so would love to work alongside anyone who's interested in exploring those possibilities. Just a couple of other things. We will be sending a follow-up email later this week. It will include a recording of the presentation. It will have our contact information as well as Erika's contact information. After the webinar, a brief survey will pop up. We'd appreciate it if you could just take a moment to fill it out. And with that, we'll end the webinar. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, Zach, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Appreciate it.